Hey guys, Andy back from Mediocre Hobbies coming at you with another Tyranid painting guide. About 2 weeks ago, I uploaded a video showing you guys quick and effective ways of painting the 3 new Tyranid Hive Fleet schemes that Games Workshop showed off ahead of the 10th edition launch. After posting that video, it did very well. You guys showed massive support, so a huge thank you to that. But there was also an inundate of comments requesting other Hive Fleet schemes to be done in the same style with the quick dry brushes, contrast, and stuff like that. So I thought I would follow through and give you guys exactly what you asked for. So in this video, as opposed to going with the newer schemes, I'm going to go with the most traditional schemes. So I'm going to go with Kraken, Behemoth, and Leviathan and show you guys how to get these painted up in this video in no time at all. Before I get into the video, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of my active patrons. Without you guys, I would not be able to keep the lights on and the cameras rolling. If you are interested in getting involved in my Patreon, certain rewards include a private Discord server where you can hang out with me on a daily basis and talking about hobby, and access to an extra video every single week. So you get 52 extra videos a year for being a Patreon member or a member of the YouTube community. All right, guys, once again, thank you for your support. Let's get painting Tyranids. Okay, so we're back at it. We have 3 more of these miniatures that I have printed out just to use for testers. I would not print out models to use for a game. That's just not my style. But for testing out paint schemes, there's nothing better. So the first one we're going to go into is Behemoth, one of my personal favorites. And I started with Flesh Tears Red and applied this all over the soft skin parts of the miniature. In case you're wondering, the miniature was sprayed black and then sprayed grey sear. I find this gives you the best coat for applying contrast on top of. I've been using it on pretty much all the models ever, apart from a few. So like I said, Flesh Tears Red contrast applied over all the fleshy parts, and trying your best not to hit any of the carapace, because the color we're going to apply over that is going to be a little bit transparent. And if the red splodged onto the armor, you would notice it through the contrast. That contrast is of course going to be Croxagore Scales. This was one of the Wave 2 contrast paints, and it is absolutely fantastic as a turquoise base coat. And Behemoth are all about that turquoise. It screams off the page. This is actually the first Tyranid color scheme I ever seen. When I first walked into Games Workshop Dublin, which was my local Games Workshop store and one I ended up working in for 15 years, there was a huge army of these guys in the cabinet. They were stunning and I was besotted by them, and I always thought to myself I would love to have that scheme. So maybe whenever I get my grubby paws on the new Leviathan box set, I might actually paint them up in this scheme as a separate detachment from my other gigantic Tyranid army. After the Croxagore flesh had been applied, I also threw some Black Templar contrast on his hooves, claws, and certain parts of his gun. Nothing crazy. Like I said, when I do these tutorials, I'm only going to focus on the skin and the armor parts. The rest, you guys can paint tongue and teeth and eyes and claws, whichever way you personally want. Each person will do them their own way. Null oil shade was then applied to the entire model just to knock it all down a little bit and add some extra shade into the recesses. It really helps with that chitness armor or chitinous armor. And comments I got that saying I was pronouncing it wrong. You can pronounce it both ways. It's a 2 pronunciation style word. Okay, after the null oil was dried, I threw just some crappy texture paste on the base just to not to distract your eye with the bright base. And then it was time for the first layering. So I'm going to use a bit of Mephiston Red. And this is the quickest layer job in the universe. We are not trying to be super neat and super precise. We're not trying to catch it all. Just the outside areas and the high areas that you're going to be able to see when you look down on a tabletop and see the model. Remember that this is a gaunt miniature, whether it be a Hormagaunt or a Termagaunt. There's going to be dozens of these things on the table. If you want to get an entire army done in a relatively quick, short period of time, then you're going to need to learn how to paint fast. And this is definitely one of those ways to do that. Sotek green was then used to highlight the carapace. Very quickly, just following the natural lines of the carapace. It has kind of crinkles in it. Just giving you that idea. It's like nail material, but a lot harder, instead of being super smooth like it was our like metallic armor. Yeah, so just quickly follow the lines with the armor and apply that color. And it gives you a nice bright and vibrant turquoise scheme. Then I like to, for this particular Tyranid scheme, I like going for hard coat, which is a high gloss varnish, and applying that all over the armor panels, all the chitinous or chitinous areas of the miniature. Once this is applied, you will end up with this really nice, shiny, very alien-esque style miniature. Obviously, eyes and teeth were all done as well, just on the side. A few high-definition pictures, and there we have it. Hive Fleet Behemoth is finished up and ready for the tabletop. Okay, for the second scheme of this video, I'm going to go on to the original lazy scheme, which was Hive Fleet Kraken. This was brought out in relation to a painting guide book that Games Workshop brought out many years ago, and it introduced this new Hive Fleet with just wicked, quick, and efficient ways of painting a Tyranid army. So, model was prepared exactly the same, and then Agros Dunes was then applied to all of the soft parts of the miniature. It's a very effective way of giving you a really nice scheme. Now, if you Google Kraken Tyranids, you're going to get a million different kind of shades and tones. In fact, when you do that with pretty much any Hive Fleet, you'll get that. I like the one that's slightly darker, like this here. I think it looks really cool. It makes it, once again, feel much more natural, like it's a, you know, an alien creature, as opposed to bony or whatever. But yeah, Flesh Tears Red was then used for the carapace this time, as this is predominantly a red and cream color scheme. This is one where we want to take our time with the red and not hit the skin. This will, of course, stand out a mile if you accidentally hit any of that. So taking a couple of minutes, taking your time, following each panel one at a time, and you will quickly have a miniature that is all red and Agros Dunes, or sandy color, deserty color, bony color, whatever way you want to look at it. It's a super nice scheme. That's one of the things that I'm kind of curious about with the new Leviathan box coming out. I know a lot of people will buy the Leviathan box for the Tyranids, but I think a disproportionate number of people will buy it for the Space Marines, which means that a disproportionate amount of people will have Tyranids left over. And I'm hoping that my schemes help them to just bash through those miniatures, even if they're not the thing in the box that excites you the most, instead of just leaving the box under your bed or in a closet forgotten about. Using one of my quick and efficient schemes just to get some paint on them so that they're done and they don't get added to your backlog straight away. Seraphim Sepia was then applied to the entire miniature, and obviously the same basing material was applied to this base, and wait for the entire miniature to dry, and then it's time for a quick layer job. So for that, I'm going to dry brush on a bit of Ushabti bone really lightly over the skin areas. And just like I talked about the layering the red bits on the last one, all we have to do is the outside bits. I'm not going to try and get that brush in and under and get his chest and the insides of his arms and stuff. You cannot see that. Those parts are in shadow and in shade. They're supposed to be darker than the outside parts. This is just supposed to catch all those nice bright ridges and sharp edges. As you can see, it definitely adds something to the model. Jump over to Corn Red for a quick layer job on all of the chitin or chitin. I've got to say both words from now on just to appease everybody. Just like I said with the Sultai Green before, following the natural lines of the armor and almost like a feathering technique. We don't want to basically completely cover the panel. We only want to get a few feathered streaks on each panel just to brighten up those bits a little bit. And then, of course, you're going to go away and paint teeth and eyes and tongue and all those bits and pieces, and you're going to be left with this. One Hive Fleet Kraken Gaunt miniature, ready and waiting. This turned out better than I was expecting. I actually really like this. This is probably the first Kraken miniature that I actually really like. It's not one of my favorite schemes, but this one to me just works really well. Okay, for our third and final scheme for this video, and my sixth scheme in total for Tyranids in the last couple of weeks to help you guys out, we are going to go for Leviathan. So Leviathan is a bizarre one in that its weapons are not the same color as the body, which is a bit bizarre for Tyranids, but that's okay. So we're going to start with that Flesh Tears Red again and paint in all of his weapons. So that includes his claws and hooves. I also decided to go for his tongue as well, just to keep a little bit of color symmetry throughout the model. Looks like he's got little tap shoes here, or else he's going to ask to say there's no place like home. But anyway, Luxion Purple, apologies. One of the new contrasts, again from the Wave 2, was then applied to all of the armor panels, his chitin or chitin parts of the model. Being careful not to hit the skin and soft parts. There is actually no base coat color going on the soft parts of the model. We're just going to let a shade and a dry brush do all the work when it comes to painting this guy up. Hive Fleet Leviathan seems to be the poster, I was going to say boys of the, Tyranids have no gender, but the poster xenomorph thingies of the Tyranids these days, and they seem to be the most on the artwork. Not one of my favorites again. Well, Behemoth is definitely my favorite of the 3 schemes we have done here today. Null oil was then thrown over the entire miniature. This helped add some really nice definition to that skin part that we didn't touch at all, and to the armor. And as it dries, you can see it left a really nice effect. Super pleased with that. And the last thing we do is grab a palette witch flesh and dry brush not only the skin and soft parts, but we're also going to go against the grain and dry brush up his armor as well. This is by far the quickest scheme that I think there is to paint if you do my style. It's literally apply a red and a purple contrast, wash the model, and then dry brush the whole thing, palette witch flesh. Teeth, eyes, tongue, done. And not to toot my own horn, but I think it looks pretty good for the amount of effort put in. Effort versus reward on this model is very high, I feel. If I had a whole swath of these guys storming up and down the table, I think that'll look pretty cool. As a final touch, just to make the gun and weapons pop a little bit more, we're going to go back to corn red and just layer up those parts again. When we did the dry brush of palette witch flesh, these are the parts that we don't particularly want to hit, but I think the trade-off of hitting them and getting everything else is definitely worth it. Like I said, as a final result, I'm quite proud of this one. I think a swarm of these guys coming across the table would look very cool. A couple of high definition pictures just to finish off the motif so you can see exactly what we did. And I've also included a few snapshots of the 6 models I've done in the last couple of videos all together, so you can see all the different schemes. So if you're interested in those, I will put a link to the other video down below. And hopefully you can find one that you guys like. Okay guys, and there we have it. Leviathan, Kraken, and Behemoth painted up very quickly, very easily. I also got a lot of questions requesting how to apply these to bigger models. Obviously all the same paints apply. You may just have to put in a little bit more work. I am willing to make videos on some of the larger models, but not on all 6 color schemes I've done so far. So if you have a particular one you'd like to see replicated on a larger scale, please let me know in the comments below. The one with the most votes will of course get my attention, and I will do a video of like a Hive Tyrant painted in that scheme. Alright guys, thank you very much for sticking around to the end of the video. Make sure you give it a like if you want to help and share it to more people. Ask me any questions you have in the comments below. I will get back to each and every one of you guys, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. It makes a huge difference to me. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you in the next video.